Cynthia, good catch. I'm glad we were able to make that adjustment. Okay, so today we're going to talk about um, two-a-days. All right. One of the things we're gonna. Hey, Sarah, what's up? All right. So today we're gonna talk about two-a-days, and I think that there are some best practices that I can share from being in a position where I've done two-a-days before. Um, I think that separating your cardio and separating your strength training in many cases can help you maximize your results. It can help you give your best efforts into these results. And there's some scientific facts that are proven that actually show why executing two-a-days is most effective. Conventionally in strength and conditioning, which is what my background is in, typically with a lot of athletes, you have your strength portion and your conditioning portion. The strength portion usually is separate from the conditioning portion. What we've seen in society now is this desire to do cross training, which can be effective. A lot of times people use cross training as a means to be a time saver. They use it as a means to be more efficient in their workouts because they may not have time to do a two-a-day. And I think that cross training can help, where you're incorporating the strength and conditioning component. But to maximize your aerobic and anaerobic training, and I'll explain what those mean, usually you want to train them in some cases separately. So this double down challenge, one of the focuses is increasing your mileage progressively while also getting strength training components in. You'll find that a lot of marathon runners are encouraged to adopt some sort of strength training regimen in addition to their marathon training. And the reason for that is because in order for those muscles to fire off properly in mechanics, they have to be trained in a way of what we would call in science hypertrophy. It needs to be trained in a way that those muscles are easily recruited. They're usually easily recruited when you've trained them to fire off. So many times you see overtraining injuries that occur because of overuse, doing too much too soon, especially in aerobic sports such as marathon running. You see overtraining issues because of all of these other issues, but in many cases you see it because of the fact that there's no strength training component that is paired with the aerobic training program. Just being frank, most of us want to lose weight. Some of us have some fitness goals, some of us have mileage goals, some of us have, different types of goals that we're trying to achieve or attain. Even in that, it's best to separate the two because to maximize benefits, certain things will occur better based off of the time of day and what your diet is at that time of day. For example, I'm not a fan or an advocate of doing fasted weight training. And the reason for that is because in order for you to get the true benefits of weight training, you really need to have a carb in your system that will produce the energy, which is known as ATP, which will help you effectively build muscle. So you actually need carbs in some way to build muscle. Otherwise, your body will become what is called catabolic and start breaking down. And essentially, you hit that point of diminishing returns. So what ends up happening is your muscles don't really grow; they just cannibalize themselves. So in order to maximize your training for strength training, particularly, you want to do it after you've had a couple meals in your system. If you're training for muscular growth. On the flip side, I am a huge advocate of fasted cardio. Fasted cardiovascular would mean, running, Stairmaster, cycling, perhaps doing a HIIT training cardio-based class, things that the focus is more so on the caloric burn and not necessarily building muscle, okay? So fasted cardio, in their science that proves this, your most effective means at increasing aerobic capacity and at burning fat is to do it when your insulin levels are the lowest. That's science. Regardless of what people come out here and say, fasted cardio, we believe it, we don't believe it. The science of it is if your insulin levels are low, you're going to burn fat more effectively. In addition to that, when you're training from a cardiovascular standpoint, your energy comes from your aerobic system. That means it's coming from oxygen, not necessarily from carbs, if you will. So those two components, I think, are more than enough evidence to show that scientifically, if you're coming off of a fast, your insulin levels are low. If you're coming off of a fast, your body doesn't have those additional carbs in your system to provide as a fuel source of energy. So essentially, if you're able to tap into that aerobic system, you can do what is known as beta oxidation, which essentially is the breakdown of fat tissues and glycerol, glycerides, to essentially burn fat. This has been a bodybuilder's secret, but I don't even think it's really a bodybuilder's secret because I think it's out. You know, everybody knows, at least in that community, that there are benefits to being able to do fasted cardio. So you're able to A, increase aerobic capacity, and B, burn fat more effectively. So how does this translate to the Double Down Challenge? Okay, Double Down Challenge is a 2-a-day workout. Historically, typically when you're doing 2-a-days, you're working two different systems. You know, you may have one workout in athletics, one workout may be a strength training workout, the next workout may be practice, you know, where you're essentially trying to maximize your benefit of whatever it is that you're trying to do in those two workout sessions. This particular 2-a-day challenge, again, is to have an aerobic focus, which would be the running portion, and a strength training focus. So how does it play into it? It exactly explains it. To me, if you're looking to participate in this challenge as a person that has studied this, the best way to do it would be to get your runs in, if you have the time, either fasted first thing in the morning when your insulin levels are the lowest, and or after a workout. And after a workout, you've used up the carbs that you would typically have throughout the day, thus allowing your insulin levels to be low again so that you can maximize the benefit of being, of training in that particular state. So I would say if you're gonna do a Double Down Challenge, those would be the best times to get your runs in, okay? Now, let's talk about best practices. Oh, before I go there, let me get back to the strength training component. From a strength training component, I would recommend doing your strength training mid to later day after you've had a carb meal in your system. If you're going keto, you need to have had some sort of fats in your system, something to give you energy so that you have something to burn while you're doing your resistance training. Resistance training historically is regarded as anaerobic, which means that a lot of your energy to fuel it is not necessarily coming from oxygen, it's coming from what you eat. So I wouldn't recommend doing that fasted, all right? Now, let's talk about best practices. When I do cardio first thing in the morning, if I'm doing a run or what have you, I'm not putting on my Under Armour or Fabletics clothes. Honestly, and this is a way to get it in. I'm not telling you how to do it, but this is how I do it. My goal in a run or a Stairmaster session or what have you is to literally get it done and sweat and make sure my heart rate is in the right position. So I'll use a Polar or some sort of tracking mechanism to make sure that my heart rate is in the right position the entire time to get the cardiovascular benefit. So most of the time, I have a separate set of clothes for when I do fasted cardio and a separate set of clothes for when I'm lifting. When I'm lifting, yeah, I want the more contoured look. I want, some of the Under Armour or men's Fabletics or Nike or whatever brand you want. That's when I color coordinate. when I do my fasted cardio in the morning, I look homeless. I know that's not everybody's ministry, but that's my ministry. And part of the reason why is because I like being able to just throw on some sweats and go. Ultimately, when you think about it, your first cardio session in the morning is probably going to be your sweatiest clothes. So what that means is those are going to be the clothes that end up stinking after a week, even more so than your strength training. Those are going to be the ones that you're going to have to wash like 3 or 4 times and put all those Tide Pods and all that Gain scented stuff in there. I mean, those are the ones that are just going to be what they are. So for me, if I'm looking for, you know, attire in the morning, I'm throwing on some, and it takes less time for me to get ready. That's the other thing too. I think it's very important because when you are doing your cardio in the morning, because it's before you have to eat, and for some of you who work early, you really don't want to try to, you know, go out here looking like a fitness Instagram model or what have you. You may just want to just go and throw on some clothes and just go just to get it done, especially if you're doing 2 a day. If you're doing 2 a day, I mean, you have another outfit later that you can obviously put on, and if you want to go the whole fashion route, fine. But I recommend in the morning, you know, get you some sweats, get you some throw on cardio clothes, old t-shirts, what have you, that you don't mind sweating in, you don't mind getting funky. You don't mind if they stay funky after so much time. I'm not telling you to stay funky, be out here bogus, but obviously wash your clothes. But I'm just giving you guys just some tidbits because for me, I just like throw on clothes in the morning. If I'm going to wear something more up-to-date, current, and color coordinated, that's later in the day. It just helps me so that I can get out the door and get it done. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If you take a lot of time in the morning to get out and get your cardio in, it's going to be a hard thing for you to do the 2 a day. So I think the best advice I can give with that is keep it simple, stupid. Another thing too is also if you are a morning person or if you're not a morning person, I'd recommend, and again, this is depending upon your doctor, you have to consult your doctor first, and you know, don't take this as gold. This is just my personal best practice. A cup of coffee in the morning. I say straight black if you can, mainly because the caffeine does have thermogenic properties. Usually, I'm not advocating for you to become addicted to caffeine by no means, but if you do need that extra boost in your day or in your morning, it might not be a bad idea for you to be able to have that shot of espresso, or green tea is a good option too, caffeinated green tea, just to give you that little bit of a jolt. And the caffeine does have thermogenic properties if you're trying to lose weight. In addition to that, preparation prevents piss poor performance. So if you notice that you're taking a long time to get out the door in the morning, set out your throw on clothes the night before, and make sure that you go to bed with the intention to wake up in the morning. Usually when you go to bed with the intention to get up, it's a lot more likely that you get up as opposed to you saying, nah, I'll get up, and then if I get it, I get it done. Success is a mindset. In many cases, it starts with you planning to succeed, not just succeeding by accident, okay? In addition to that, you wanna make sure that you are allowing yourself enough time to rest. If you are doing all these miles and progressively increasing these miles, your rest is going to correlate with that. So if you guys are doing this challenge and you're not used to doing 2 a days, you may want to allow yourself ample time to get more sleep, mainly because your body is under a lot more stress, which means that it's going to affect it's going to affect you. You know, your energy output's going to increase. It's not a bad thing, but it's one of those things that you want to account for and understand how that plays a role into, you know, your ability to train. Because if you don't do that, you will burn out very quickly. And then ultimately you will not be able to do what it is that you got to do. A couple other practices I think that are good before you do your cardio in the morning or before you do your lifts. I think foam rolling. Foam rolling takes maybe 5 minutes. There are several YouTube videos. I've done content on foam rolling too on my Instagram page. Foam rolling, dynamic stretching. These are things that actually help your body move better. So a recommended amount of time to leave between both workouts. Typically, I would say anywhere from 4 to 5 hours. You want to give yourself a nice little window of recovery, and you typically want to give yourself, like, usually, I can't tell you how everyone else does it, but I can say that if I'm me personally, I get my cardio done first thing in the morning. And then after that, I need to have a meal in, at least a meal in, before I get my strength training workout in. So usually that 3 to 5 hour window is right where you can be. If it's a little later in the day, that's fine too. Obviously, you don't want to do fasted cardio, then go midnight and get your lift in, and then you don't have enough time to get sleep. So you want to take that into consideration too. That's a really good question. But I think that, usually that 3 to 5 hour window gives your body enough time to rehydrate, for you to come back to what we call homeostasis, so that you can get the most out of your next workout. That's a good question. I would also say it depends on the type of cardio that you're doing too. If you're running, obviously you might need a little bit more time before you're doing a leg day workout. If you're training legs that day, obviously you may want more recovery, mainly because the energy system in which you're working, and the primary anatomy that you're working is going to be what you work later. So you want to give it enough time to recover adequately and sufficiently so that you can get the most out of your workout, as opposed to just getting to the gym and half doing it. It's a good question. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Cynthia? Anybody? Let's see. Is there any other? See if anybody else had any questions while I was on here. Okay. Well, ultimately, like I said, I think the Double Down Challenge is a very good challenge. I think that many of you will notice positive adaptations. Oh, you have one, Jennifer? Go ahead. Shoot. What you got? Which question? Did you type it? Let me know if you have a question. I see she has a question. Waiting on Jennifer. What's your question? Should body parts you focus on somehow correlate with the cardio you do? All right, how many times should we be doing cardio and strength training a week for a beginning runner? That's good. Okay, I think I'm gonna answer, Cindy. I'm gonna answer Jennifer's question first, and then I'm gonna come back to yours. How many times should we be doing cardio and strength training each week for a beginning runner? I can't speak for a beginning. There's a lot of components to that, because, for example, you may be a beginning runner, but you may be a former athlete. If you're a former athlete, your body has a certain type of conditioning. If you have never played any sports, that's different. So obviously we'd have to take into account, your body's conditioning level. We'd have to take into account your body composition. We have to take into account previous injuries. There are a lot of other components that we'd have to take into consideration to base the volume that you'd be doing. In addition to that, what are your running mechanics? Do you have proper gait with your running? Do you have any underlying conditions of your feet? I know I'm getting into a lot of details, but if you're asking me as a person that would be assessing you, I would be taking into account, what's your running gait look like? What's your hip flexion mobility look like? How's your sciatica? Do you have any sciatic pain? Are your mechanics right when you walk? All those different components would determine the amount of load. If you're a beginner runner and you've ran before and you've been involved in some sort of sports, and let's say you're active, you just want to run a marathon, but this is your first time, I would say anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week, maybe every other day. I would say 2 to 3 days of running and maybe a good 2 days of strength training is what I would program. So you'd be looking at perhaps a light run, maybe quarter mile to a half a mile on a Monday. And then you're looking at, and I'd keep it very light first because I want to see how your body adapts and progresses. There's actually a run to walk program that I received when I tore my ACL and when I did my stress fracture, that actually has a very good, very slow run to walk progression. I have to find it, but it's a very, very slow progression. It talks about running 1 minute, and it's time-based. It's running 1 minute, walking. Well, it's like running 30 seconds and walking 2 to 3 minutes. It's something very, very slow, but it progressively decreases the work to rest ratio. But if we're looking at times out of a week, we'd be looking at maybe Monday, we're doing a run, Tuesday, strength training, upper body, Wednesday, run, Thursday, strength training, lower body, Friday, some sort of run, and then Saturday and Sunday, we'd want to do some recovery work. Obviously, yoga, stretching, flexibility, mobility. That's pretty much my program that I would put out for runners that I've dealt with in the past. Hopefully that answers. I'm a former athlete, no injuries, but I have asthma. Sometimes people do too much, too little when lifting. For double down, do you have a target number? Okay. Cynthia, I'm gonna come back to your questions. I got you, okay? Because I'm gonna make sure I'm answering this question. I'm a former athlete, no injuries, I have asthma, I'm flat-footed, I bought some Brooks to help with shin splints. I'm working on walking to run. Jennifer, my suggestion would be to get a gait analysis. You can get that done there are a couple different places in Chicago that you can go to. I think the place I went to was Impact Physical Therapy. But there are different places where if you look at a gait analysis, you can get someone to actually videotape your running gait, and they can take a look at and give you some cueing as to what you should be doing when you're running so that you can focus on running with proper mechanics. Ultimately, the reason why I had stress fractures, full disclosure, as a former athlete, I was running wrong. I was doing a lot of running, but I was doing heel to toe, not midfoot to toe, and especially with my flat feet and all my different injuries, it was a horrible way to run. I had a gait analysis, told me the right shoes that I needed. Sometimes you can get those gait analysis done at some of these shoe stores too. But getting that gait analysis, I think, would be a good start for you if you're really trying to invest in more running. That way you're able to, properly assess, what areas you need to work on as a runner. And I think that whenever you're training for anything, you want to make sure that you're doing perfect practice. You know how they say practice makes perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. So you want to see what areas that your gait can be improved and make sure you're running properly. And then we focus on the mileage increase after you're running properly. Because if you're not running properly, one of the things that could be an issue is perhaps your hip flexors are too tight, or perhaps your glute medius is not firing off properly. It could be a couple of different things. So those are things that you can find out typically by doing injury screens and assessments. From the asthma standpoint, that's going to come down to your breathing. That's going to come down to your ability to control your oxygen intake and your oxygen uptake, which will essentially correlate to your VO2 max, which is how you control your breathing from that perspective. So I think that that's something that can be worked on with just a trainer who's knowledgeable about those types of things too. So I think that would be the route I would suggest if that answers your question. All right, now I'm gonna go back to Cynthia's question. Should the body parts you focus on somehow correlate with cardio you do? I think that typically, I can only give you my suggestions. You want to mix up your cardio. I know that this program with Double Down is very runner focused. So if people want to run, that's fine. Me personally, in my personal experience, I found that when I'm working a particular body part, if I want to maximize the strength training component of that body part from a bodybuilder perspective, that it would be best for me to find a means to offload that particular body part. So for example, if I have a heavy leg day, I'm not going to put a lot of impact on my legs that morning for cardio. If I do anything, it's going to be very, very low intensity. I'm not going to do like a insanity workout where I'm doing jump squats and jump lunges and all this other stuff, because essentially I won't be able to maximize my output for the lift component of the workout, which then kind of leads you to that overtraining category. In addition, if I'm working bis and tris and forearms later, I'm not going to do battle ropes. It doesn't make sense. Unless I'm doing it as a burnout just because I just want to feel a burn, it doesn't make sense to do that as my primary form of cardio or a cardio component. I'm not going to take a rope class, because if I did a battle rope class, it would tax those muscles, and then ultimately I wouldn't give enough time for recovery. So I would say it depends on the load and depends on the intensity and frequency of that cardio. If you're running, you may want to do a lighter base run. You may want to swim for that day. You may want to cycle or do something that just has less intensity, so that if you're training legs, you're able to have an effective leg workout. Hopefully that answers the first question, Cynthia. Next question that you have is, I think some people do too much, too little when lifting. For the double down specifically, do you have a target number of exercises, reps you want done in each session? Now, that is very specific to the person. You said do too much or too little when lifting. Every single person is different. That's not something that I can program to a general population. That's a very specific goal, and it all depends on the person. Some people want to just lift for sake of aesthetics. Some people want to lift for sake of being able to run better. So you have different targets at which you're lifting. Like when you're lifting, you have a certain rep range lift that correlates to power. That deals with athletes that want more explosiveness. So if you have a person who's running and they want to be able to take off out the gate faster, they're going to need a certain rep range and load. You have people that want strength. So in your traditional power lifters, those are people that just want to be really, really, really strong, want to deadlift 1,000 pounds, power lift, whatever. That's going to require rep range. You have people that want hypertrophy, which is more what you would see in bodybuilding, and who want the aesthetics. That's going to require rep range. And then you have people that want muscular endurance. I'm literally reciting everything from when I'm studying right now. and that's going to require rep range. So I think it really just depends on the person and understanding what your particular goal is and what you want to get out of, a double down program. And then that can determine how you would proceed from a standpoint of being able to determine what rep range you should be in. Hopefully that answers that question. I'm sorry. It's run, walk, and cycle. I want runners to do something other than run. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I think that's good. Run, walk, cycle. I think that's a good mix-up, and I think it would be good to be able to have that variance in your training. Run, walk, cycle. So by the time this program's over, maybe you all will be fully ready to do triathlons and Ironman and all that cool stuff. Okay, thank you. Running is very challenging to me, but I love it. Thank you for your expertise, Larry. No problem. Glad to be able to share and be able to help. Hopefully, what I'm sharing with you gives you some tips to understand the science behind it. I don't want to speak in all sciencey terms. So I want to be able to hopefully communicate in a way that everybody understands what it is I'm trying to say, and that it's not. I don't want to. Let me know if I'm going too far into the science for you guys. I just want to make sure that you guys understand the benefits behind what we're doing and how to best assess what it is you're trying to do and achieve those same results. Okay, Cynthia, I'm sorry I couldn't give an exact answer, but to be honest with you, that question is not really. That's a very broad question. A lot of it has to really do with question regarding nutrition and the protein window. Oh, that's an easy question to answer. When you finish working out, typically you want 30 minutes to an hour to get a protein and a carb in your system, because protein synthesis typically occurs within that time it starts, and that's for recovery purposes. So you want to make sure that you have that ready to go. That can be whether it be a piece of meat, nice sweet potato, or protein shake with banana. It could be a myriad of different things, but you want you want that protein and that carb ready to go, ready to lock and load, so that for the DD, I'll double down on the importance of protein consumption. I would say when you're doing any type of training, whether it be anaerobic or aerobic, your body is still working muscles. When you're doing anaerobic, typically you're working fast twitch muscles. So for example, the biceps and tris and your larger fast twitch muscle groups, those are the ones that you lift with. When you're doing aerobic training, typically you're working what they call your slow twitch muscles, which are your stabilizations and locomotion muscles. All muscles need protein. All muscles need a carb to grow and become more efficient. So I would say you want to get protein after your aerobic training, and you want to get protein after your anaerobic training, which is your strength training. So it's equally as important for both sessions. And in all honesty, that's part of a balanced diet. So if you think about it, your breakfast should include, so if you're doing, like, let's say your first cardio session fasted, your protein should be included in your first meal. Let's see what Nazir said here, hold on. Basically what you're saying is the key is finding what your balance is on an individual level, correct? Because it's not a one size fits all. All training, whether it be sports or regular fitness training, is all specific based on the person. I think that the problem with fitness today is that everybody tries to find a cookie cutter, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I found this out in bodybuilding, and you'll find this out as a trainer. If you are a trainer, that what may work for one person may not work for another. You have to look at their conditions. You have to look at, their exercise history, injury history, their insulin sensitivity, their metabolic profile, which you have your mesomorph, your endomorph, and your ectomorphs. All of those components fit into this puzzle piece as to finding out how to best achieve your fitness goals. And everybody has different goals. Yes, some people who may not care about bigger biceps and triceps. They may just want to be able to run faster or, hit a better time. I mean, if you are an Ironman or you're running a marathon, I don't know that having bigger biceps really matters to you, So a lot of it depends on your personal goals and the way your anatomy is set up. But the more you educate yourself, the more you try to love all of this. Please remember to save the video so you can email it. Oh, absolutely. Good. I'll definitely save it. So just save it after this. Okay, cool. So save it on Facebook, but then also save it personally. Also, please tell people. Oh, yes. If you guys want to reach me, email me. My email address is lhfitnesssolutions@gmail.com, and that's fitness solutions with an S @gmail.com. You can reach me there if you guys are interested in personal training, coaching, or if you have any other questions. Again, it's LH Fitness, kind of like my logo here, LH Fitness Solutions @gmail.com. And you guys can reach me there. And hopefully, this talk has provided you guys some context, some things to think about, some best practices in terms of getting two-a-days in. Some nutritional advice, some recovery advice, and hopefully you guys are, able to really truly get whatever goals it is. But first things first, set a goal. Don't just do this challenge and not have something in mind that you want to get out of it. I think pursuing something aimlessly doesn't really lead to tangible results. I think you need to actually set a goal for yourself, whether it be running at a certain pace, whether it be a weight loss goal, whether it be improving fitness, whether it be a physical goal, whether it be a mental goal, whether it be a consistency goal. But goal setting is very important. I think that having a target gives you a mission to be able to achieve that target. So essentially you want to have the ability to know if you're tracking in the right direction. The only way you can know that is if you have a goal that you can measure. So that's very important to being successful in any challenge. So I think that that's very important. Again, if you want to reach me, my email address is lhfitnesssolutions@gmail.com, and just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help you. Thank you guys so much for the time. Good luck with the Double Down Challenge, and I know you guys are going to do great. Hopefully this provides you guys with some more insight, feedback, and knowledge pertaining to this challenge so that you guys can effectively hit your goals. All right. So Cynthia, I'm going to save this, and I'll make sure I send it over to you. You guys have a good one. Thank you.